pressure.
Oh,
There you
good.
go. We're
That's
done.
good.
Ready.
Are we
So
starting now?
we are in big ideas, as chosen by our good producer, Mr. Ben Hutchings. Do you have a big idea ready, Ben? He's not even on the microphone yet.
Me in quarter of an hour.
Ask me.
Wow.
Half-assed internet research about to happen. Are you just going to be reading directly off Wikipedia?
Because Ben shows big ideas, but big ideas permeate on life and our time in the pub and on life generally.
Yeah.
Are these architectural big ideas, or can I bring in kind of universal basic income or?
For the listeners last week, Bill was in a slightly odd mood after the podcast, and I asked you to come up with some ideas for big ideas, and I wrote down some of the things you said, and they're quite random. So,
Okay.
the top one's time travel. That was one of your ideas.
Can you imagine though? Think big. I mean, Elon would take that on and say, "Yeah, well, is it possible? No."
So for the listeners, why don't let's create a boundary that we're going to work within for big ideas.
That's not a big idea. That's
anything
not a big
that
move.
is-
That's the first thing you wouldn't
No.
do.
It's creating a border.
Yeah, like if you
Okay.
were going to say blue sky thinking, the first thing is here's the box.
No, time travel is not acceptable. Bringing back dinosaurs is also not acceptable. Things that are physically... Teleportation is also not acceptable. Your idea that I think you mentioned last week to me, I will entertain. But other than that, I just want things that are right on the realms of possibility. Can't bring back dinosaurs. That's my big idea. But
Well, you've clearly not seen.
because I watched this amazing documentary last week called Jurassic Park, and I think if that... I mean, I don't know what happened to them, but yeah,
Oh no,
okay.
so there's no point. But you say bringing back dinosaurs, but there are people who want to rewild parts of the UK, and that's a very electric topic. If you know anyone that that is into kind of rural politics, some of these where urban meets rural, what's a kind of urban inhabitants' view on what's sensible for the countryside is not the same as people who live in the countryside, and there are people who believe in rewilding, whether that's wolves or particular types of otter or whatever. That has a huge impact on the kind of farming community and livestock that you have, but also it's quite a kind of nice idea. Let's have packs of wolves and our heritage. But
Well,
it clashes, doesn't it, like fundamentally with modern rural life.
Well, in England, sure, the idea of bringing back wolves seems a little out there. But in America, they did it to huge success. It completely transformed an entire valley's ecosystem by bringing back wolves. True story. I'm glad that
Transformed in a good way?
in a really good way. So they had a huge overpopulation of moose or something. I don't know what the plural of moose is. Mooses.
Mice.
Mice. And they brought back wolves. Wolves brought the population down, and then actually the rest of the fauna and population of other animals built up, and it created an amazing environment.
I can well believe it. And America's massive, so you can say, yeah, just take over, Texas or whatever, and you've still got the rest of us. Whereas in England, it's kind of, I do that in, I don't know, Pembrokeshire.
I was going to say, I'm willing to indulge your animal fancy now. Where in England are you proposing to bring back wolves?
I'm not.
Well, this is a big idea. We just said no boundaries.
I'm not. It's someone's big idea, and
I thought you were
and
proposing.
it's come into contact with reality. But places in Sutherland, for example, in north of Scotland, where you've got huge, you've still got huge wildernesses. Effectively, I mean, they're owned, so they're not wilderness, but they're heathers, and they're not agricultural. They're just huge expanses of land. So that's a kind of big idea. But when you have a big idea, what you're saying is, I'm going to change the status quo. And when you change the status quo, everyone who stands to be affected pushes against it. So it's maybe not just a big idea, it's convincing people that it's upsetting their kind of norms. It's going to be worth it. Like that guy who is trying to replace poppies that heroin is produced from with different sort of fruits, and persuading them that actually, papaya juice is going to be the next huge.
What? So instead of making heroin, they're going to make nice fruit drinks?
It's not papaya, but they are trying to find ways for these farmers to wean themselves off it. And we're so, we're so suggestible, us. We urbanites, that one day you don't need coconut water and the next is you want 10 different types of coconut water to choose what you want.
Or heroin.
No.
Let's not give the farmers no choice. Whilst I'm loath to move off the Jurassic Park and animals and wolves, I did want to frame it slightly. I've given a little bit of a little architectural nod.
Lovely.
I'm going to go with small, medium, large, extra large ideas. Do you see what I did there? I used the title reference book. Do you have it on your shelf? You do. No, as if we did it.
Do you think that's subconscious? That's a Rem Koolhaas book, SMLXL.
SMLXL. Anyway, so my ideas, our ideas, are going to be apportioned into smaller parts. So I've done a little graph. My little graph has a few of my ideas, but we're going to start with small, then medium, and then enlarge. Then we're going to have our higher or lower, which you are going to love today.
I'm excited.
And then we're going to end on extra large because I've got an absolutely brilliant idea, and Ben's going to trumpet with. Did you?
What?
Well, you've
grown.
Yeah, he's like,
grown.
am I? There's pressure on me to end the podcast
I was
now.
just interested. What are you going to say next?
An amazing idea, a big idea. So
Bigger than time travel.
bigger than time travel. What about teleportation? And then we can. Well, maybe we can talk about teleportation. Okay, fine. I'll write that down. Teleportation.
No,
it's fine.
it's fine.
No,
I'm
no,
excited.
no. I got shot down now.
I just think if you're talking about big ideas, you're thinking about policy ideas or
No.
mass wealth distribution or no borders on continental land masses or...
Okay, I was thinking theoretical and actual.
Okay.
And mine were maybe we make millions. People listen to this podcast and think we're genie eye, or people just think we've drunk too much of the old alcoholic tea that we have in these mugs. Okay, so we're going to start with small ideas, but big ideas, but they're small.
Okay.
My first one, which I've told you before, and you were a little bit rude about, an app for Spotify. I'm going to start small. I'm going to work up.
It is an app.
Yeah, I know. But this is an app that sits on an app. Okay, right. I'm imagining people listening. Where's Ben going? Where's Ben going with this? You want to do a party, right? Everyone's choosing songs for a Spotify playlist, but all four of you log in, and I call it the Spotify Blender. And only the people that all choose the song, that goes into the playlist. Therefore, you have the perfect playlist based on everyone's likes. Or you just end up with one.
I get it.
Bohemian Rhapsody.
I get it. I get it. It's a simple idea.
Whoa. So dismissive.
You're the kind
Amazing.
of...
Thank
Do the great parties come about by committee? As in, we've all agreed on this.
Okay.
It's someone saying, this theme is Tom Cruise, and you're coming dressed as Tom Cruise characters, and everyone's saying, that's rubbish. Then they do it. They love it.
Okay, let me reverse my pitch. This is for an 8-hour car journey. You're all stuck in a car journey. You've got to go travel up together to Scotland. 8 hours. What music are you going to listen to? No one can decide. Cue, arguments. Falling out friendships. Awkward first day to the holiday. Ben's Blender app. I was about to say my Grindr app, and I didn't mean that, did I?
Blender.
Is Blender...
I think that's good. I think what's the crossover between mum, dad, grumpy adolescent, 9-year-old boy, Andrew Lloyd Webber?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, Moulin Rouge
Or then
soundtrack.
it finds a song as a mix of those.
Yeah, exactly.
And if it's
Yeah.
only 2 tracks, it's that on repeat for 8 hours.
Okay, so
Can't be a
that's my small idea. I know the title's big idea, and I'm now regretting starting off small because I've left myself no room to go.
It's not architectural. I mean,
Hang
this
on,
is an
what-
architectural podcast. Isn't it?
Is it? Is it? Because your first 2 ideas that you shout me down are teleportation. Jurassic Park, the documentary.
I didn't say teleportation. That's ridiculous. It doesn't exist.
Okay, okay, fine. Do you want to stick this within the realms of architecture? It's going to be a much shorter podcast.
Broadly, or at least it's urbanist application.
Okay, can I start with a monologue of why big ideas are going to be great?
Okay.
No, don't roll your eyes. Okay. I was going to do some Hans Zimmer music, but Ben was like, I don't think you should do that. But, so, this is my monologue for why we need big ideas. People need to believe in big ideas. In Roman times, they used fires in the distance for infrastructure. They needed an idea to be able to see from a distance. During the day, the smoke allowed them to see where they were going, and at night, they could aim for the fire. People need to believe in things to aim on a big scale. I believe that infrastructure and architecture has the ability to give big ideas on a scale that captures everyone's imagination. And I speak to a lot of people about Bjarke Ingels and about Elon Musk, and people think that's kind of innocent and naive, but I think that they capture people's imagination. And I think if you look at Elon Musk, you look at all of the things that he's doing, like SpaceX and Tesla, they're amazing big ideas. And then the Bjarke Ingels projects that I love, the Copenhagen Power Station with a ski slope on top, the Manhattan tidal surge protection that's also theatres. They're amazing ideas, and I love them. And you need to make people believe in these big things.
And to sort of support that, but it could seem contrary to it. You're talking about these single driven men and their visions and delivering that, and that's sort of one type of big idea. The other type of big idea, which is much more current, or perhaps it's in conflict to it, is community action and the like hyper localization and empowering people and empowering communities. And I don't know, I think of Finn Williams and public practice, this idea that you get brilliant planners and designers and architects to work in councils, and you get councils to give them a fair deal and a fair salary, and it's kind of mutually beneficial. And it's quite a big idea. It's a sort of dating, it's a sort of dating platform where you can get talented people and put them into positions where they can affect change. And that's quite a big idea, but it doesn't need an Elon Musk or a Richard Branson sitting behind it to kind of make it happen. It's a sort of community action, that kind of thing. And I think those ones, that there's nothing stronger than an idea. It's like this great quote, in that once it's planted, once you decide to leave where you're working.
Is that from Inception?
I mean, it's used in Inception, but it's a bigger thing. Like, once you've thought, I want to buy a new camera, it costs £100. But basically, no amount of reason or logic or financial constraint will stop you, but like achieving that. So the power
I get to buy a camera. That's all I'm thinking.
And I think that's really strong. And I think that's why social things which can quickly catch fire, suddenly everyone starts championing it, and rather than it being a lone megalomaniac billionaire, they're not all megalomaniacs, but a lone billionaire, it's this thing that everybody wants to immediately represent, like kind of plant-based diets, as we might touch on later.
That's coming from my medium-sized one. I like that.
That's a big idea. I mean, that is a big idea. The idea that even 10 years ago, being vegan, as it was then called, and isn't it still vegan? But
you got to think about the repercussions of that as well. No more meat production. Change the ecosystem.
It's a massive.
Change everything, yeah.
You've got a real glint in his eye then. It's like, my generation are going to change things.
Yeah.
My German grandma...
You're a bit hungover.
Yeah.
A bit hungover, and you're like, can't wait to go home. A bloody smasher. What is the plant-based option?
I can't wait to have a kiwi smoothie.
No, it's cheesy. It's definitely cheesy.
No, I know I'm saying...
They're growing
that's not
meat
vegan,
now.
actually.
They're growing meat now, so you'll be able to eat meat out of a petri dish or whatever.
A burger.
It'll just be a burger. Yeah.
A vegan burger.
Yeah.
No, because it'll.
I have a bit of an issue with people having vegan sausages and vegan burgers. Choose your own shape of food. Don't steal a man one. I was going to choose an awful metaphor then. But anyway, something that is bad in the shape of something else.
I think plant-based diet is going to become the norm. I mean,
let me go back a step. I like that I have chosen what I think are, now listening to you talk, quite childlike. But I like those ideas on that scale. But what you're saying are more intricate and more social, community-based ideas. And mine are a bit... that's why I like this podcast.
No, I'm an abrasive... I'm deliberately saying sort
You're
of...
playing Bill's advocate, is what you're saying.
No, because I read a horrible quote that said, when someone says they're playing devil's advocate, what they're really saying is they're just being a mess. So I'm not. I'm just putting what the other idea, and I like that idea that a small change made by a huge amount of people has this huge impact. Whether it was CFCs, and the ozone layer is repairing, but we've got major environmental challenges. But the messages about what change needs to happen are being diluted and conflicted, and there are different political organisations representing or perpetuating very differing views. So the man on the street feels sort of disempowered. Well, not so much disempowered, but confused as to what they should be doing. Whereas if you could unify what that message is, people would change. And I think plant-based diets are really exciting because you go into restaurants and the plant-based option is delicious and exciting, and you go to the superstore and it's, I don't know why I said superstore, we don't say that in England, do we? Supermarket, And actually, it's really easy. And those are small things that are adding up to huge change. So it's a big idea that people suddenly caught fire.
Do you think you and I will ever go for lunch and order a vegan meal? Because I don't think we've ever done that yet.
Well, we have, you know.
When?
No, I don't
No,
know.
but I like the idea. I like the principle of it. I do. I think.
But you must like the principle of having a roast chicken on a Sunday, but not having roast chicken, like not having chicken sandwiches during the week. I mean, for a start.
I'm just playing Ben's advocate. No, I know.
I mean, that's one
I'm
idea.
just being
That's one
massive.
idea.
But what I think the reason I wrote those ideas about Bjarke Ingels and Elon Musk is because I feel they're big ideas that, from an architectural point of view, they impact architecture in quite an exciting way, and your community ones. And I think maybe things like WeWork and this idea of much smaller, more lightweight companies moving around, and the idea of restaurants and working places and living places are all overlapping. I like the way they're changing architecture, and I like as an idea. They're big ideas, and they're slowly percolating through to like our level of architecture. They're not just drones and a render. They're now finally things we're trying to put. I like it. This is why this podcast is gold, Bill.
I've got a big idea, but
Don't look at my book.
No,
You
I'm
get your
trying
own
to.
big ideas.
You framed it as small, medium, and large.
Yeah, that was just a
small
pathetic- That was just
idea.
a really bad
Oh, so
way
that's
to.
gone. That's not a framing device. Okay, I had a big idea.
Oh, here we go. Jump straight to
What?
the end. Hang on. What did I have for my medium? No, okay, yeah, fine.
What about if the ground floor of all central London was given over to public realm? Boom. So everything.
Sorry, that's just my interesting
Yeah.
voice. Yeah.
So
Okay, shoot.
lift everything up. What's great about the HSBC Bank in the Hong Kong Shanghai Bank in Hong Kong is that very dense. You know, there's not much space on the ground. One of the most dense cities on earth. They've jacked it up on stilts. You can walk under it. Lots of people have picnic theirs on a Sunday. It's public realm. Okay, you've got this fucking great building above. What's Eric Parry doing at the fantastic
Your
100? He's jacking it up, and you can walk under. What have we done on buildings we've worked on? Well, it's about making that ground floor hyper accessible. Okay, we're not going to start lifting every building up, but you could easily say every new building within Zone 1
Yeah, definitely.
gives it, and then suddenly you're creating meeting places and spaces, and maybe you let people go a bit higher as a result. It's a big idea.
I like it though. Bill's big idea, but that is considering where the podcast started. That's a genuinely interesting big idea. I like it
Ben.
because we started off with teleportation, Jurassic Park, and now we're at really interesting podcast ideas. I agree with that, and we're literally doing I'm not doing this. I'm going to change my story. We might be doing a competition. Anyway, the point is that we are creating a much more accessible and open ground floor. The whole ground floor is open. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And the offset is that the game is you try and allow the planners to feel they've got much more control over the ground floor. What do they want? What does the city need? And then in return, the development opportunity is kind of broadened above ground floor, and that's the trade-off. Instead of just putting pod and eat on ground floor, you actually make it into a place, a destination place, and it's really exciting. It means that the architects get something back, the developer gets more back, the planners get what they want. I think it's
Do you
good.
think having trams was a big idea? You know,
Yeah.
a city, you know, like other cities within the UK. I think having trams is a brilliant. It's a big idea to say, you know, at Bristol we're going to introduce trams, and actually, it's going to really get in the way of the bus routes and all the stuff that you're used to, and just get on with it. When they introduced the congestion charge, it was a big idea. You know what? You have to pay 10 quid to come to. Do you remember how angry? Well, mainly cabbies were, but how angry people were, and it's a big idea. Suddenly, within weeks, it was just get over it. And
well, it's interesting you said that, because if you're from London, Bank Junction is one of the busiest roundabouts and junctions in all of London, to the point where, from a health and safety point of view, if you only let people cross on a green man, the whole place will come to gridlock. You have to let people cross whenever they want, everywhere, otherwise it comes to gridlock. They've not pedestrianised it, but they only allow buses through and bikes. and it's so eerie to go there in the middle of the day when normally there's a million cars. It's worked brilliantly. Cabbies absolutely hate it. They're thinking of doing that for Oxford Street, Tottenham Court Road, trialling all these things. They are really big ideas, but they're not that big. They're just really sensible, and they just take a long time, and it's the fire in the distance.
I think big is in terms of how many people are going to be disrupted by delivering this, and then what is their effect afterwards going to be. But if you lead people and show them how it's going to happen and what their lives will be afterwards, I mean, what, do we need another big idea? The pedestrianisation of Oxford Street has gone on hold. And that was a big idea, and it would have been absolutely brilliant because it's a bit of a dump. It's a big queue of buses. People that work near it avoid it at all costs and just move north to south. People that use it just sort of traipse along, avoiding each other. Imagine if all that was a big European boulevard, the kind of thing you get in Las Ramblas or something. That'd be awesome. You'd have concerts, you'd have performance. That's a big idea that failed.
There's what's interesting.
This Sinclair C5.
Oh, nice.
That is a big idea.
That is a big idea. I mean, Segways.
Before your time, do you know what that is?
I know what that is. That's the weird little motorbike.
The most dangerous. It's just low enough for a large truck to kind of plough straight into the side.
So I'm literally stealing someone's idea at work, and if they listen to this and they know, then they'll smile at this. But someone did a university project which was putting a pollution light feature across Oxford Street, so you could see the lights change colour depending on how much pollution is. Because we got given all these free pollution sensors at work. There's little white ones you could put in your back pocket, and it would tell you how much pollution on your bike ride. Oxford Street is absolutely horrendous. Anyway, I was going to end on my big idea, but this is so topical, I'm now just going to say it anyway. You were talking about trams and whether they were a big idea, and they're great. And buses. So my big idea, autonomous vehicles, we touched on it last week. So this is my big idea. I've made this up myself. Don't take a deep breath. You're like, oh God, get a drink, fill my drink up. No, okay, Ben, right.
Copyright this, Ben.
Yeah, okay. I think you get rid of buses. Autonomous vehicles, wait, controversial, hooked you in. You use transport lorries, which are all autonomous, and outside of the M25, you have consolidation centres. They need to bring goods into the middle of the city. They can come whenever they want during the day. They're completely quiet. They drive very slowly. They lift all of their cargo above 6 feet in the air, and the bottom of it is a roving bus. But it's a bus like an Airbnb. So you say where you want to go to where you're going to, and it just finds the nearest lorry transport vehicle, and you can just jump on and off, and it knows from facial recognition that you've got on it, and you know roughly how long it would take. And there's hundreds and hundreds of lorries around the city, and it's like a roving network of buses/lorries, and you just get on whichever's closest. There's no bus stops. The autonomous vehicle can just move to roughly where you are if it doesn't change your journey time by that long.
Like a kind of shared Uber that's also carrying things.
I mean, that's the way that autonomous vehicles are going anyway, isn't it?
Uber lorries, basically. But the point is that there's so many of them, you just move to the next street. Oh, there's one coming in a few minutes on the next street. It's going roughly near where I want to go. I jump on and it's free. But then it allows lorries an enormous amount of goods to come into the city, because that is the thing that's not allowing a lot of these pedestrianisation things to work. Is that, I mean, the project we're working
need goods.
Yeah, the project we're working on has outside of hours consolidation. So it's 7 in the eve to midnight to 7 in the morning. All goods have to be delivered. Nothing outside of that time. That's just really impractical. I mean, it's going to work because they did it for the Olympics, but it's an office, it's fine. But if you're a restaurant, you need fish at 3 in the afternoon. You need to order fish at that point, right? But that's my big idea.
That's a big idea.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, there you go.
I think, I mean, you think that's how AVs are going. Yeah, so it's less sort of preordained. But people like routine. You don't want to get up, go to the end of your road, be like, oh, we're going this way today, because they're dropping off a load of stuff at I was going to say Woolworths. But
don't they, though? I think I'd be all right with that. I'm now dismissing your thing. Yeah, yesterday you're like, people just get used to going up a lift in 20 minutes, not 5 minutes. I think people would be like, they just don't care. You just get rid of all you can still use a tube. It's pissing down rain.
I do. I like it. Basically, I like it. I think the idea of having these big, well, also, central London, it depends where you live, but nothing is that far. If something's 3 miles away in London, it's an age because all the traffic lights and the people. If there are no cars or buses or anything, imagine how quickly you just jog there or run there. The other thing is, we're not going to buy stuff and take it home in bags. you're going to kind of rent stuff. It's going to go to your house. It's going to be much more fluid interchange. This idea of...
You're going to say drones, aren't you?
No.
I can feel it.
It's going to be... You're not going to have lorries delivering thousands of things to peacocks or to Boots. You know, it's going to be food. You're going to have your haircut. You're going to have your people mending things. It's not... You're not going to have these huge department stores. It feels like the idea of bringing a lot of goods into Oxford Street so that people can buy them and take them home again. I think that's all gone, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's all experience. And there are, you know, you need deliveries to do that, but if it's all experience, why are we wasting all the space on infrastructure? But yeah.
Oh, I didn't have to talk. You just ran out of stuff to say. Surely not. Surely not.
I realised it wasn't that much about sort of architecture in the built environment.
I don't think anyone's listening to this podcast for an organised, structured podcast about architecture. We're allowed to roam. We're in the nest. This is fun.
Okay.
If you're listening to this and you're expecting a serious one, go and listen to one about British art or something.
I would like the idea of
A serious podcast.
more autonomous air travel.
Yeah.
Because helicopters, I mean, they're pretty cool, aren't they?
Are you touching on a certain type of autonomous?
He's hovering near it.
It sounded like a drone. I'm ringing the drone bell.
Okay, drones.
Yeah.
Drones, bloody drones.
Last week you said you wouldn't use them because the downdraft would be too distracting.
No,
and
but
you
from
couldn't use them.
central London, I wouldn't get it from kind of Oxford Street back to Hackney or whatever. But I
Why
would.
not?
I'd get it from. I don't know. I'd get it from London Fields to.
You're trying not to give away too much of where you travel to.
No, but I'd go. The idea of having loads, like a minibus size vehicles that quickly take you to Leicester or Birmingham or Manchester. I'd like that. That is what we're missing. If London, you know, we've ended up with this sort of two-tier state. We've got London and the UK, and how the big ideas people are coming up with to mitigate that are moving the BBC to Manchester, moving Channel 4 to Leeds, devolving
HSBC to Birmingham. That's so they've all moved.
Are they? Yeah, of course. And actually, what you want is just like hyper connectivity between all these places, and maybe it's HS2, maybe it's HS.
Well, that's kind of what I was touching on. This idea of I wrote this thing that kind of digital. What do you call it? Disruptive tech, right? So there's an infrastructure waiting there, and people just suddenly you find it quickly, like Airbnb or Instagram or these things that take over quite quickly. They're great, but people are quite flippant about that. You know, you can use it, you can not use it. Airbnb could end in a couple of months and something new pop up. I feel that my metaphor of a fire in the distance to aim for are things like HS2, things that take a decade to do. You know, if you think of Crossrail, that's taken a decade. It's only going to start. Is it started yet? No, next month. Yeah, next year.
Delayed again.
But it'll revolutionise. People just take it for granted that you can travel from Heathrow to Liverpool Street in 10 minutes.
I was at a kind of Crossrail 2 meeting a few months ago before it was all sort of delayed, and we're planning the commutes that people are going to be having 50 years from now, like how they're going to travel to work. So we're now living the life which someone else has designed for us, and our job as Londoners, as conscientious Londoners, is to design the best possible London for people 50 years from now. And what does that mean? Well, that's pretty cool. You know, it's not for us, it's for our children and their children, and so it's a serious business. I had another big idea which doesn't relate to that necessarily.
I mean,
we're both in this world of
in our 30s,
planning, both in our 30s, of planning conservation areas, where to go high, where not. Why not demarcate?
Oh, hang on, let me lean in. You've got your serious voice on again. Okay.
Why not demarcate a kind of? Well, back in the day, I always thought, as well as the Olympics, what if you had a kind of drugs Olympics? So people are allowed to take whatever they want. What's the fastest a man can run?
I mean, let's all be honest. As against that as you might be, you would watch that.
I'd watch that, and they're all these absolute orcs.
What would a marathon runner look like? They'd be like a zombie running along.
Just electric. I think we all agreed on that. And ESPN would bloody.
Let's just turn a blind eye to it. Just pretend it's not happening.
What if you demarcated a kind of free zone in London,
like the Purge?
Well, a planning purge. And you said there are no planning constraints, and it's a sort of go do whatever you want. Japan, they've got different planning rules, so it doesn't really matter what it looks like. You can build whatever you want within your plot demise. I think there's a limit on height. It's where all those Japanese micro houses and all those beautiful things, and the Japanese obviously do it in a very kind of restrained way. But what if you said Pimlico, for example?
You leave Pimlico.
Well, what if you say, wherever,
No,
and
yeah,
you
that's
said
amazing.
it's a free go, and this is the planning and this is the sort of infrastructure, as in the key roads. And people are allowed to build as tall as they want, as wide as the colour that they want, as proximate to to the full extent of their boundaries. And it was just a kind of commercial exercise in, you'd end up with a pretty bonkers thing. And I bet something so exciting people would want to live there.
Yeah.
Or
Well,
move there.
Well,
or,
that's why I was thinking like people would flock to London to try, or wherever, to try and like build there and like start an architect
Yeah.
practice or whatever.
When I was in third year, I went to this place in Amsterdam, and they've got, I guess, a street. It's an estate, but one street it has. No, not one of
Another
those
one
ones.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking of now.
I'm thinking of a more restrained one. But anyway, they have a void. I think it's something like 14 meters high, 5 meters wide, and 10 meters deep. And inside of that void, you can build whatever you want. And some people have built a family house. Some of them, the ground floor is a garage door with multiple cars. One of them just an
so it's
enormous.
a sort of 1.5 house, I think it's called.
Yeah, and one of them's just a tree for a poet to write in it. And all it is a tree in a glass box. But they're all, if you squint, they're all kind of roughly the same shape. But you look at them, all totally different. It's absolutely amazing, especially as a student when you see that. You think, yeah. You come to London, everything has to be like Portland stone. Everything has to be the same. But damn, we are nailing the good ideas
Well,
today.
no, but that's about like a premium of
Is someone-
space.
yeah.
Where you've got space. It's the whole thing. We go down to 1, 2, maybe 3 levels of basement because of the premium. Working on a project in Manchester, it's like, stick all the plant on the ground floor. It's like mad to dig down. So it's all about kind of how much it costs. But if you had a kind of free zone, it's quite sort of.
Well, you went to so one of the things that I love is WikiHouse, and we spoke about it last week. And you went to Here East. Did you went there?
Yeah.
And in there they've got the old broadcasting centre for the Olympics, and inside of that they've built shells, and in each one there's like a unique WikiHouse of different materials. I love that idea.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a temporary thing, right? They're not just going to.
No, they're there. People are plumbing in kind of proper.
Yeah.
So we've had, for quite a long time, we've had the affordable housing policies in London. So if you add a load of commercial area, you have to provide a certain amount of affordable housing because we have a housing shortage. Now that's tracking through to affordable workspace. So you don't just want big business. You have to provide places for commercial enterprise and for you for startup businesses, which is a brilliant idea. And one of the ways they found to do it at Here East is to put in, they're made of plywood and they sit within a superstructure, and they're this sort of self-contained, weatherproof units. But yeah, it's affordable workspace. And I went to see a few of them, and what was interesting is it wasn't just it was some artists, but it wasn't just artists. It was one guy who had a music studio. And he said he'd been looking for 4 years for a place where you had it kind of acoustic insulation from the building around you. So the fact it's a sort of sophisticated garden shed on dampers was kind of perfect for him. And it was diverse. And the thing they have, because they're out in the Olympic Village, you don't have that same premium of space as you have in Westminster City and Islington and Camden. And there were just loads of extra spaces. I mean, people outside London listening to this would be like, I just come into my house and there's, I put my bike in the front yard. I don't know what you're all banging on about. But for a lot of people, it's
so
about
true, isn't it?
cramming your mountain-bike and your barbecue on this tiny Juliet balcony, and you don't have enough space to live your life. And it just felt generous. And that's what sort of one example of it. But there are loads, I think.
I think I feel like we're far enough in the podcast now that I can be honest. The reason I like the podcast and what you've just said is really interesting, and I really enjoyed you talking about it, is because we work on big projects, and I feel like I am specialised in one type of architecture at the moment, and you
said skyscraper so many times throughout the last.
Okay, I'm doing big skyscrapers, and I love it, and but you spend so much time focusing on every little minutiae of a skyscraper that I miss learning about all these kind of cool little projects, things that excite me. So when I kind of maybe touch on Bjarke Ingels and Thomas Heatherwick, I know people think they're a bit, no, I don't know what the word is, but I find them exciting that they're doing something that's so out there and beyond what you would normally do. I think it's really exciting, and I like all these
isn't
projects.
it more that they're pushing the conversation? Because there has been a lot of talk about Starkitects being dead, and to a certain extent that's true, but you reference a lot of individuals, but that's because it's a way of they're the people that sit behind some of these big projects, but there are really good practices who do a lot of good work, who don't have a single kind of figurehead like that.
But I guess I'm not saying that what we do is bad. I'm just saying that there's people that we know who listen to this on YouTube, for example, and I want to, I like showing them architecture that's like really exciting and things that are a little unpredictable, and I like WikiHouse because it's a thing that I haven't really heard of before, and it's cool. I like it. So we're doing all right for time, actually. I don't want to run over again, but one of the biggest ideas, Bill, and I'm going to go on to higher or lower about this, but I can't actually find my soundboard. Where has it gone?
Oh, it might well have been.
Has your wonderful
we had some
son.
tiny guests over who may have borrowed it. I think it might be in the living room on the mantelpiece.
I'm going to be a bit teary-eyed and a bit happy about this, but my higher and lower is based on our podcast, and it's also ties in with big ideas. I went on our Acast account to look at which countries are listening to this podcast and how many, and it is going to absolutely blow your mind.
Oh, wow.
So I'm going to go with...
Scotland a separate country in this instance?
We're going so much further than Scotland. So I'm going to do a higher or lower, and then afterwards I'm going to tell you the other countries that didn't quite make it in.
Yes, please.
Okay, so let's start with how many people as a percentage... No, let's just say there's... I'm going to do it as a percentage.
You're too excited about this to even say the question.
I don't know where to start.
You.
I'm almost giddy with excitement. Okay, right. So why don't you guess as a percentage? We're going to start low. As a percentage, how many people as a percentage of this show listen to in New Zealand?
Of all of our listeners, how many?
Yeah, it's a low figure.
1%.
2.2%. 2.2% of our listeners are in New Zealand. Higher or lower? What's the percentage of our listener that listen to in the Philippines?
Higher.
It is. It's 2.6%.
You're giving it away. You said you're starting low and going up. So I'm like, I know where I am.
Let's just say instead of higher or low, you just got to guess the percentage. Okay. And no, actually,
how many were the Philippines?
2.6%. Okay, so
that's one person is 0.4.
No. There's more than a percentage. Okay, right. Higher or lower? And this is a genuine. Higher or lower? Higher or lower than the United States and the Philippines? I know I've already started low.
Do we have more listeners in the United States or the Philippines? I would say higher. Yes, more.
Okay, correct. It is 4%. And do you know what's funny is I've left myself no room to go with this. This is just a love.
I'm going to get 100% and I got 0% last
This
week.
is just a loving at how good it is. How many? Okay, so higher or lower than the United States is 4%. Listen in Australia.
Higher.
It is higher, yeah. What do you think the figure is?
I would say 8%.
12%. 12%.
I knew it was a jump.
Okay. Higher or lower than 12%, this is a genuinely good one, are all of the rest of the countries combined higher or lower than 12%?
All of the...
Because obviously there's a predominant country that listens to this podcast.
All of the other countries excluding the UK?
Yeah. Is it higher or lower than 12%?
Higher.
It's lower, it's 11%. But
Australia!
So 11% is the rest of the country.
Is that because we have a studio?
Yeah, do you know what? It probably is, isn't it? We have a studio in Australia. Okay, so do you want to listen? Okay, now that's the game basically, but it's amazing, right? We have listeners in Colombia, France, Finland, Singapore, Switzerland, Spain, Ethiopia, Germany, Morocco, Denmark, Australia, Sweden, Canada, and Estonia.
What's amazing is that we've got more than 8 listeners.
We have hundreds and hundreds of listeners, Bill, and
Wow.
that doesn't even take into account our YouTube channel.
Did you say Estonia or Ethiopia?
I meant Ethiopia.
Okay.
I didn't mean
Shout
Estonia.
out to the Ethiopian fans.
Yeah, yo,
Yeah.
what up?
Email
Yeah.
in.
Do you know what would make me so happy if any of these people emailed in and go, "You never talk about Ethiopia as architecture. We have some amazing projects." I'd be like,
amazing.
I'm like, in Finland, go. Iceland, go. Next season, we want to film on the road, don't we?
I think that would be cool.
It's a little more ambitious Ethiopian podcast, but there could be a developer there who wants a world-class skyscraper in Ethiopia.
Well, I think we work on bigger or more commercial buildings, and I had this really exciting evening yesterday at the RIBA, kind of mentoring people who were trying to grow small architecture businesses, and I was meant to be there as a mentor, and I learned so much from these people who have done incredible small projects, and that that kind of intensity of trying to fix loads of problems that are very important. It's someone's the biggest financial investment they'll ever make, and you're there on a kind of coalface. It's pretty intense, and I was sort of astounded by the quality of the work people were doing and how professional they were. And I'm aware that we have these teams that sit behind us who kind of help us, and there are a lot of people out there who are being incredibly innovative to fix these problems. And so we talk about these big buildings, but it would be really cool to have a sort of I don't know, not quite an agony aunt, but a kind of a call in and say we are having this problem, or even people who want work done to their house and have no idea how much it's going to cost or how to go about it. It would be cool, I think, to tap into that. I guess I was struck by there's no less ambition about people doing smaller buildings because the pressure's more in many ways.
There's something weirdly inverse about the bigger amount of money, the less you worry about that money. If it's £100 million, you're like, that's a development. If it's
there are so many people watching those pennies, where if someone gives you
£500,000 of their pension, or
£50,000 to do a small lean-to extension. If it goes wrong, it's on your door.
Yeah, I know, because everyone else, you're like, I know you've got an extra, whatever, 5% for construction issues. Whereas people with 50 grand are like, I don't have any more money. I've got to borrow more money. Yeah. But I think it's so exciting.
Can you imagine if you gave someone £50,000 for a service?
I would be so untrustworthy. I'd be like, you are going to show me exactly what you're doing.
Do you mind if I stand here while you draw it?
So we are going. I wanted to end on the extra large, SML XL. Ben's had a lot of time to read on Wikipedia now, so.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
It's not actually my idea though, so I feel kind of guilty.
That's big ideas are just like the universal basic income, which we didn't discuss.
I mean, so this is something.
Or arranged marriage, which is one of your ones from last weekend. That was also one of your big ideas.
One that we just won't talk about. Well,
that's a big idea. It's not necessarily good or my idea, but.
Yeah. One thing that a friend of mine told me was about this project in the 1920s that this German architect thought up, which was damming off the gap between Gibraltar and mainland Africa, and then as a result of doing that, would make this ginormous lake, and then all the countries would have to pitch together, and as a result of it, there'd be unlimited energy, there'd be loads of food, resources would just be,
they use the dam to create hydroelectricity.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm reading off the Wikipedia article right now, but it would provide enormous amounts of hydroelectricity. It would raise the Mediterranean Sea it would lower the Mediterranean Sea by 200 meters. So that would be a huge change.
Lower it by sorry.
You'd have a lot more land.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, more land, exactly. And one of the funny things that the architect said was that there would be no wars because nobody would have any money to fund any wars from the amount of money that they put into this project. And I just
What's this damn idea called?
It's called Atlantropa.
Hang on, so they want to create a dam between Africa and Spain?
Yeah,
How it's what, 10 miles? Do you know why I know that? Was because I was going to try and egg you on to swim the Strait of Gibraltar with me. It was going to cost 1,700 quid. Yeah, look
It's
at you.
not the cost, mate. How far is it?
It's about 10 hours of swimming.
It's the jellyfish on those extreme swims.
But we're putting on some blubber. I mean, you know. But yeah, anyway.
Exactly.
So they
I
go
was
down
fascinated by this article and this German architect
200 meters
Hermann
reduction in
Sorgel.
height.
Yeah, he fought for it for 32 years up until his death.
I can just picture his wife now. Can you just please
Leave
drop,
it.
please drop this now?
But I do kind of, you know who thinks big? The Chinese.
Yeah.
I mean, they've just done this bridge from mainland China to Macau, and it takes 2 hours to drive the length. You have to get a special pass. What's quite cool, a bit of the bridge goes underneath the water so that big ships can pass. They're not. They're like they
Wow.
don't do a sort of tower bridge opening. It just you're driving along the bridge, it just goes under and pops up again. I mean, that's thinking big.
That is absolutely incredible.
I know.
I remember seeing them build a bridge in Singapore, and they use a laser guided missile, like an actual missile with no explosives, to get the first cable to go across because it was so far to then bring the next cable back to bring
Good that they didn't explode it.
Yeah, that's good. That is, I'm still blown away at how cool that is. Now
Yeah.
that's a big idea.
I mean, we're coming to the end of it, but there's a place called Ordos we went to. And
We've got time. We've got 5 minutes until we wrap this up. We
Oh, yeah?
can enjoy
Okay.
ourselves now.
There's a city called Ordos in northern China.
Ordos.
Ordos, and it's near, and we went to it, and it was a whole city built by the Chinese for people to move to. Population explosion, and for whatever reason, no one ever moved in. And you can fly in and visit this city, and it's got hundreds of apartment blocks, and you walk along, and it's like I Am Legend, and there's nothing there.
That's so creepy.
That's crazy.
And that's a big idea.
Yeah.
That didn't.
Who funds that?
China,
The
central
Chinese,
government.
they just throw money.
Because
at it,
there's another place. I don't know if it's the same city. They just built a load of tourist attractions. There's like a copy of Tower Bridge, but it's 2 Tower Bridges side by side, and it's just this bizarre theme park with no one in.
But you can kind of that's like Las Vegas or something. But just big ideas that kind of happened but are never absorbed, like the Sinclair C5 or DOS. And we could do a whole one on that. On like
failed.
failed idea. Well,
the space race, the Cold War, get on the moon, if it happened, and suddenly we were like, no one cares about that anymore. Is that it?
Yeah. I saw a funny tweet of someone saying that the moon landing was faked, but it was filmed by Stanley Kubrick, and he's such a perfectionist, he filmed it on on site. But I do you know what? So one of my favorite podcasts is the Rewatchables, where they just go back through old films. And I was saying to this earlier that season 2, I think part of it might be like a themed one is go and talk about old buildings, like other classic buildings that maybe I should know more about. And
And I think that's a really good one. And we've spoken before about narrative being a really good way of cementing information. If people understood, I used to have this poster on my wall about how Stonehenge was probably built. Now when I drive past it, stuck on the A303 on a Sunday night, it holds something for me.
Yeah.
If you understand that St. Paul's Dome was built much bigger than it was intended to be, and there are 2 domes, and there's one that sits within the other, and what happens in between those 2 domes. It's an incredible story. I think that telling stories behind buildings people think they know, I think is great.
Because I was listening to Rewatchables, one of the ones, just about Die Hard, and I've watched it hundreds of times. It was just nice watching them talk about it, listen to them talk about it, and I think actually I didn't realise loads of stuff. I think 3 of us could heavily research any building, and I don't think anything will be quite as interesting as a dam across the Strait of Gibraltar, because that's absolutely brilliant. As an idea...
Can I also have a
you can do a
shout out?
Yeah, 100% for your boots.
We have some proper Twitter fans, and I want to do the first Andy McMillan. If you're listening, you liked the launch of episode 4 technology. Andy McMillan, bass playing, 3D creating, food loving cyclist with mediocre hair in Manchester. I'm bloody loving it, man.
I like that people need to get on the first floor. Okay, this is going places, this podcast, and he's like that. We've referenced him. Think in a year's time, we've done hundreds of episodes, and people go back to episode 5 or 4.
Andy, and if you ever ring or email, it will always get on the show, no matter how many future
We
listeners,
await.
yeah.
Yeah.
You just jump straight to the front of the queue.
Do you think people are terrified that we will just read out their email live on it? They'll be like, I just wanted to say hi. And
Yeah, it's like, whatever you do not like.
Do not
whatever
press
it is.
So Ben had a really interesting stat about podcasts that, what was your stat about podcasts?
Well, this is me remembering the article, but it was something about how many the success rate of podcasts, and most podcasts don't get past 14 episodes apparently. I think it was about like 40% of people don't get past one episode.
I like facts that are like, it was probably
Yeah.
You did give me
12,000.
time to prepare for this, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But I think that's the
What was
challenge.
the fact?
Yeah.
It was just an article about success rate of podcasts and,
Being 14 being the sort of
yeah,
drop-off.
being the magic number apparently.
So
yeah,
when are we
being
going to have a
drop-off.
party on 15?
So
Yeah.
I think 15th.
We'll celebrate the
Like
launch
having
of
a
any
marriage
episode,
that gets
Bill, yeah.
into an 8th year.
But you sent us a link, which was the architecture something. You were like, oh, it's competition.
Yeah.
And it was that weird, like, the bad logo and yellow writing. Anyway, episode 1 was about 5 minutes. Episode 2 had Richard Rogers in for a full hour. And then they only ever did 5 episodes and never did another one. And I think that kind of... So our big idea is everyone listening, you're part of it.
Yeah.
You're part of it, and then we'll give up in an episode's time. But I think this is good. We've had some really nice comments. Thank you very much for everyone that's given us nice comments.
Yeah.
And we do this every week, but it's Bill or Ben at architectureden.com. Not just Alf, your brother, should email. Other people should email too.
We've had some emails, some
Yeah.
guys, offering to optimize our.
Instagram followers.
No, we've had a few emails.
You've had some really nice tweets as well for people at Architecture Den on Twitter.
Yeah, we've had lots of that.
Yeah.
So thank you for those.
And anyone interesting? No, didn't like us. No, that's your personal tweet.
What are
And
we going to discuss next week? Have we
well, I'm going to come to that, but Ben's doing our Instagram account, and I'm in a constant battle to try and get more Instagram followers, and I'm failing miserably. I started mine on the same day that Ben started our account, and he's doing a lot better than me, which is very
Good.
Yeah. Anyway,
Well,
it's not a competition. So next week, Ben, what's our podcast going to be?
Well, I've given this no thought,
Okay.
and you've just reminded. Well, you've just suggested a good topic. I think your last point leads into
Here we go.
failure, which is an interesting topic. Kind of depressing, but failure, failed ideas.
no.
This
And
is
also
why
it's
he's part of the
something,
podcast, Bill.
It's something we have rich experience in. So I think
Exactly.
That is great. I mean, I want to find out more about the guy who did the Strait of Gibraltar.
Oh yeah, exactly.
I'm in.
Yeah.
did he fail or did he get an idea in the global domain?
He got a Wikipedia article. There you go.
I mean, I don't want to say that.
Failure. Okay.
Success to me is if we get a Wikipedia page. And do you know, apparently the rule is you're not allowed to make your own Wikipedia page. You have to...
Jealous.
Yeah, we can do.
Is that again? I vote for you. Boom.
Just really mean.
Incredibly successful co-host.
Okay.
Gift of the gab.
Next week's podcast is on failure, which would be ironic if we didn't do it.
Yeah.
We're going to do it though. We almost didn't do it tonight. And also, ironically, I told the death of our YouTube channel, and then one of our very close colleagues at work was like, I wouldn't listen to it on Acast or YouTube podcast. I would only watch it on YouTube. So just for him.
G-bomb, if you're
Yes,
listening.
yeah. He's like, yes, shout out again. If you're listening, this is just for you.
All right.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. See you next week. Bye.
Bye.